Hello and welcome to the Chase Down podcast. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost. There's no commitment. Try for free at fubo.tv.com/Cavs. Oh, baby. We are we are here. The Cavaliers have taken a 3-2 series lead against the Toronto Raptors. Looked ugly at stretches, obviously, early on in the first half. At different points in the third quarter, you started to wonder. It started to feel like a little dodgy, a little scary. But these guys, fought through. They got the stops they needed to get. Dennis Schroder had a Dennis Schroder game. Evan Mobley heated up from three. The bigs got involved a little bit to start the second half, and we are at least going 7. And the Cavs will have an opportunity to close out the series in 6. A bit of housekeeping right off the rip. You might notice that I am not Justin Rowan. Justin had some family commitments, so he's not going to be able to make this podcast, and he's going to do me a solid by covering Game 6 for me while I'm out of town for my brother's birthday, doing a little getaway for his 40th. So no Justin today, no me for Game 6, and because there's no me, there will be no video live podcast reacting to Game 6, no matter which way it goes. So just keep an eye out for that. But let's dive in. This was a absolutely crazy game, and I think you have to start with Dennis Schroder. Dennis scores 19 points on 11 shots. 2 assists and no turnovers. It's just every timely bucket that they needed in the fourth, including a couple threes, double digits in the fourth. And this was kind of the thesis with Dennis, was that, hey, you don't want to need him every single game because the jumper can come and go, and he's not going to get guarded, and he makes you a little bit smaller by having him out there. But you kind of know, based on his international track record, based on his postseason track record, that he is the kind of guy you like having in the roster, the ultimate break glass in case of emergency player who can come out there and take over a 3-4 minute stretch of a game. And that's exactly what he did. Toronto was, I think when you dedicate so many resources to the other guards, it's just hard to add a third to the list. Kenny played a lot of 3-guard minutes in this game. Those are minutes I don't like normally. And that, Kenny tends to believe in maybe a little bit more than I do. But they really paid off in this game. Sorry, solo pods are hard, guys. You're gonna have to give me a little bit of grace here. But the I think against all that ball pressure from Toronto, it did keep things moving. It gave the Cavs a lot of points to attack, and again, but like it all comes down to the shot making for Dennis. And there have been times where you look at this this Cavs roster and you've got good shooters and you've got good passers and connectors, but you don't have a lot of bucket getters that like can have those stretches, you know, the Jordan Clarksons of the world that can like exceed their station for little stretches of time. And like I think that's exactly what they were hoping they'd get out of Dennis, and that's exactly what they got. He was phenomenal, and I really appreciate his efforts. Frankly, think he probably needed more touches to end the game. You know, on a game where James clearly had lost a little bit off the top after a really electric first quarter, and another game where Donovan doesn't have it going. I'm like, can we just get Dennis the ball more? Can we just run some high pick and roll with him and Evan and just see what we get out of that, and use the starting guards as decoys, which I thought they might have a game like this. I'm glad they did, because I don't think they win this game without Dennis Schroder, because Toronto had really, I think, reclaimed the style battle a little bit by mid fourth quarter, by like that 6-minute mark. You know, they were starting to get every loose ball. The Cavs had gone to the one big. I don't think Evan and Jarrett shared the floor in the fourth, and they weren't, you know, so the big stuff had been taken off the table. You know, they were very reliant on Evan hitting 3 threes, and we'll talk about Evan's offensive explosion as well. But I think they probably don't win this game if they don't have Dennis. And you know, now, and we're having a very different podcast, a much more funereal, somber podcast where you go like this, you know, the feels like the era of the team would really feel like it was in jeopardy after 3 straight losses to this Raptors team, especially when you consider the fact that even though he hasn't been good in this series, and like, guys, I know he hasn't been good in this series, they did lose Brandon Ingram in this game. I want to say it was a heel injury. Didn't come back, and I know he's been bad, but like one thing he can do is at least put pressure on the defense and make you bend your defense a little bit. I think the Cavs had it a lot easier without him on the floor. It forced Toronto to play Shed and Walter together. Walter had a great game, but those are two guys that are just not real threats. They're kind of threats, but they're not real threats. And I think the lineups just kind of stopped tilting in Toronto's favor. And they even, I think it also caused Darko to overreact a little bit. He played that lineup with like, I want to say it was, 6-5, 4 minutes left. I forget the exact minute marks, with Scotty at the 5. He didn't have either Pirtle or Colin Murray-Boyles out there. And I thought that was not the right choice, as the Cavs scored on like 3 or 4 straight possessions before he got CMB back in and immediately got some rim protection on the floor, and things got hard for the Cavs again offensively. So, this would have been a real bad one to lose. No way around it, especially with the Cavs shooting 50% from 3 in this game, and the Raptors, while shooting again very well, just down a lot of their firepower. Not to mention, Scotty Barnes did seem to come up limping a couple times. We'll wait to see what the post-game injury kind of conversations look like, but he clearly looked hobbled. He goes 6 of 16 in this game. So again, this was one the Cavs just needed to win, and I think it was Varden that said it in one of the national reporters was like, it wasn't like inherently a very like spiriting win, but a not super emphatic win is still better than a loss. And a loss here would have been a disaster. I think there's no way around it. Going into Game 6 in Toronto on Friday. I think it's on Friday. It might be Saturday. I can't remember. But I'll have to pull that up in a minute, but yeah, they needed this one. Dennis got them there, and I have to give him all the flowers for kind of dragging the Cavs. That game 6 is on Friday. Sorry, it is on Friday on the first. Want to talk about the bigs next? It was because this game started out, and I was very dispirited, guys. I was very concerned that it didn't look like the Cavs had really figured out much against the ball pressure. It was a lot of relying on James Harden to be your offensive engine. They weren't able to find Jarrett for a lot of touches. They weren't able to find Evan for a lot of touches, and Evan's touches that he was getting were not super impactful. And it was like, man, are we going to go just another series where the bigs are getting the touches, they're getting the ball with advantage and doing something with it, and then the opposition makes some kind of adjustment, and we're just out of luck? Is that what it's going to be? I think that's immediately where I went, is like, are they just not going to be able to figure it out? And you come in out of the second half, and you immediately get, big to big passing again. You're able to find Jarrett going downhill. You're able to find Evan going downhill. Evan gets a dunk. Jarrett gets a dunk. Jarrett gets a layup. Yeah, I want to say they went 8 of 9 in the second half at one point. 8 of their first 9 from the field, and it's less about the field goal attempts to me and more about just the touches. Jared Allen's front court touches have just collapsed over the course of this series. And, he still only played 25 minutes. I mean, I might quibble with that, as I thought he had some great rim protection moments, some nice finishing moments, some not so nice moments too, without a doubt. But I just don't think this team is going to ever be something if those guys aren't catching the ball. They're just so predictable. And if they're not catching the ball and they're not a threat to, dribble, drive, and attack in other ways, like, the whole thing kind of just gets predictable, and it gets real reliant on those two guards and reliant on the jump shot as a means to an end. So the fact that they were able to get downhill, they were able to get the ball popping a little bit more. I just think that it was a good indicator for what the rest of the series might look like. Because I think we've seen in the past, sometimes when teams make these adjustments, it just becomes the Donovan show or the Darius show or now the James show. And I just don't think that's something that serves the Cavs over a 7-game series. And that is part of playoff hoops, is like, things get uglier, things simplify, it's harder to get to your pet actions, even things like pick and rolls get gummed up and people start attacking you on the catch and picking at the stuff that you're not so good at, but like, you can't completely lose yourself over the course of a playoff series over and over and over again and never expect to make the kind of run that this Cavs team wants to be able to make. They've got to be able to find the rhythm to kind of control the game and find themselves in sync, because teams move fastest when everyone's in sync, guys. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, docs, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. The Cavs made a starting lineup change in this one. Max Strus was placed in the starting lineup over Dean Wade. I think Kenny was probably looking to do two things. Thing one was juice the offense. Dean just has not been a threat at the 3. A lot of 3, 4, 5 field goal attempt games, and it just puts a lot of pressure on the guards to break down a set defense with help shading. And I think the other sneaky thing they were going for was the Evan lineups at the 5 have just been getting run off the floor without Dean out there. And I think Kenny kind of came to the same conclusion that I've kind of been sitting on, which is that this team is at its best when 2 of Jarrett, Evan, and Dean are on the floor. most of the time. That's not always the case. They closed, with Dennis out there and Max at the 4 for big stretches of this game. But I think in your base rotations, it's just really hard to play with the size that you need to play with if you're not going to have Dean coming off the bench. So I thought it was an okay move. I don't think that lineup has performed that well individually. They've been outscored by 13 points in the 13 minutes they've been on the floor. That was a Danny Cunningham pull going into the game. I don't think that they draped themselves in glory in this game either. But it does just balance out the rest of the team a little better and makes it a little easier. You're not, like I always talk about coaching from a position of strength, and I don't like anything that press gangs me into a lineup I'm not that geek to be in. And I think sometimes the Dean starting thing, even though that lineup was kicking ass, it press ganged the Cavs into lineups that weren't exactly what you want. So I think ultimately they'll probably roll with this the rest of the way, especially if Ingram doesn't come back, because the big reason to have Wade out there was to slow down Ingram, who even before he left the game only had 2 field goal attempts. So that really wasn't a major factor. I think they'll roll with this, and I think they'll probably roll with this the rest of the postseason, if I had to guess. Other rotational notes, we saw our first Thomas Bryant minutes. He played 5 minutes, and nothing much happened in those 5 minutes. He had an assist, had a turnover, had a steal, -1 overall in his 5 minutes, but notable that he got on the floor, and also notable that Keon Ellis did not get on the floor. I felt going into this postseason that Kenny was going to need to choose between Dennis and Keon, just to kind of protect the amount of size he had on the floor. This was the first game he made that choice, though. I mean, you could point to the second half of either game 3 or 4 where Dennis got benched. I think it was game 4, but I can't remember. So I don't know if that'll continue. I've said it a few times. I don't think this actually means like Keon is out for the playoffs for the Cavs. I think this is a especially tough matchup for him because of the physicality with which Toronto attacks you and where they attack you from. Like you just don't need to put a premium defender on Jamal Shed or Jacoby Walter. And RJ Barrett is one of the nastiest driving wings in the league. Scotty Barnes, nasty. Brandon Ingram, 6'11". And I don't think he's found his matchup. Now, of course, they're looking at a perspective. If they win this series, they're looking down the barrel of the Orlando Magic, who are also massive. But I do like, I like a Keon Ellis against a Desmond Bane much more than I like him against a lot of the matchups that this Toronto team throws at him. So I don't think that this is the end of the Keon Ellis playoff experience for the Cavs. But I think it was probably the right choice. He just hasn't been able to find his impact out there, and the playmaking that if you look at the rest of the Cavs bench in the non-Dean Wade division for the wings. You have Dennis Schroder, who can dribble, play, make, initiate, unstick things that way. You got Sam Merrill, who has been a very, very good secondary attacker and obviously has unbelievable gravity as a shooter. And Jalen Tyson, who ran like 4 or 5 pick and rolls in this game. And I thought was very, very good in his 13 minutes. So it's like you just kind of look at what you need in this matchup. It's not just about finding Keon someone to guard on defense where his specific set of skills is going to help you bear fruit. It's also about what you need offensively. And might be a series where the Cavs just need a spot shooter. And because, that's just the way the defense is going. It just hasn't been that way. So I think it was a very defensible choice. And, I thought Kenny had a pretty good game coaching, and he pulled the right triggers. It doesn't hurt when Dennis Schroder goes absolutely nuts. But yeah, I think this will probably be something close to the rotation they roll out in the next game. Maybe Thomas doesn't play. I don't know. I do want to now move over to the guards, or the starting backcourt very specifically, because it was another weird game for these guys. James goes nuts in the first quarter, scores 14 points, ends up with 23, so he only scores 9 the rest of the game. Another more turnover than assist game for him. He had 6 turnovers to 5 assists, including like 3 or 4 just like baffling ones where, like the one where he caught the rebound that was already clearly going out of bounds and stood on and had his foot on the line when he did it. It was like, but overall, I want to give James some credit, despite I know we've been harping on the turnovers, but I thought his attacks were a lot better in this game. I thought he got Toronto into help. He demanded more attention in spots where Toronto didn't want to bring help in this game. Like, he turned the corner really well. And I do think that is an important distinction, because Toronto's been putting 2 on the ball on James and Donovan for the last 3 games. It's just when it's been in the Raptors' favor, it's been on the Raptors' terms. It's them coming in and mucking up things before, in like either rushing up an action or making them get rid of the ball like 30 feet from the hoop and having to put these high arcing things. So different when you're able to turn the corner and make the big kind of commit to you and give yourself the pocket pass, or find someone on the short roll so they can then turn and make a good choice, or spray it out to a shooter. Like, I just feel like James's playmaking, even in a game he only had 5 assists. The Cavs only had 20 total assists in this game to 14 turnovers. So yet another factor playing stylistically in the Raptors' favor there. But I thought his offensive game was maybe a little better than the numbers. I don't think he played a very good defensive game. Another RJ Barrett game where he could just kind of turn the corner on James and get right to the hoop whenever he had that matchup. And it wasn't just him. Jamal Shed got to the rim a bunch. Just about everyone. I actually think Scotty's had the hardest time with him, because Scotty wants to go through his chest, not around him. But anyone who had any wiggle was generally getting past him. And he's got to be a little better on that end. But overall, I do want to say, I do want to give him credit. He played the entire first quarter, played 40 total minutes. And I've been a little like wondering, like, hey, Kenny, when are you going to start getting these minute totals up? Donovan only plays 31. Jarrett plays 25. Evan plays 33. And I do think, like, maybe you just need to push the button of, like, hey, if you're helping, you're just going to stay out there longer. I'm going to extend some shifts. And if you get tired, well, that's why we ran a bunch to get our conditioning up. Because I think Kenny basically played a 9-man rotation, if you don't count the 5-minute shift from Thomas. But I don't know. I got to give James credit for carrying the kind of the heavy burden, and he ends up plus 10 in this game, in a game the Cavs won by 5. So did he play a perfect game? No. But he was ultimately, much more helpful than harmful, and you got to give him a lot of love for keeping the offense going. Donovan, another weird game. I don't know quite what to make of it. The 3-pointer was much more on. He goes 3 of 5 from 3, but he still scores 19 points on 17 shots in this game. Only 3 assists to 2 turnovers, -9 overall. And I kind of am of 2 minds. On one hand, he again really struggled with the kind of the strong side defense that Toronto was showing him, and it wasn't just the usual suspects of Scotty, shutting his water off, or Jamal Shed and throwing big bodies at him. And making him make hard reads. It was like also like there was a possession where he got ISO'd onto Jamison Battle and just couldn't turn the corner in the first half. And you go, man, what is going on? Because like even when Donovan's had rough games, like normally it's like the jumper's just not serving him, but he's at least able to get to where he wants on the floor, and it just wasn't happening. And
One thing I will point to, I don't know if this is as the Zoomers say, copium, or if I actually feel like something's been found. I do think he started making some hay in terms of, from a process standpoint more than a result standpoint, against the ball pressure and the 2 on the ball from Toronto. He started splitting the doubles very aggressively, with the windmill move, with using that kind of far step out in front, throwing the ball ahead. I thought his splits were a lot better, and it got him downhill towards the rim. And I think when he gets ahead of steam and is able to play advantage basketball, the reads get easier, the finishing angles get easier, and he can just start kind of playing his game. I just don't think he's been playing his game these last 3 games, and I thought in the second half, even though the results didn't really follow, that he looked a little closer to the Donovan that, is going to be, an all-NBA player for this team, maybe first team all-NBA. After a pretty phenomenal season where you can look to the on-off differentials, and the Cavs were not a super functional team without him most of the year, and it hasn't been the case these last 3 games. He's been, they've been losing his minutes because he hasn't been able to get comfortable, hasn't been able to find his rhythm, hasn't been able to get into the teeth of the Raptors defense. So just keep an eye on it is what I'll say. I don't want to say I'm not doing a bold, national TV takey thing of Donovan has figured out the Raptors defense, because 19 points on 17 shots and a 3-to-2 assist to turnover ratio doesn't scream solved, but I feel like he found a little something. Let me know in the chat if you think I'm huffing that copium or not. But I thought he just looked a little bit more assured with the ball in his hands, and just missed some layups he normally makes, or some floaters that he normally makes. So keep an eye on that. But I think how Game 6 starts will be very informative. Let's just say on that front. I do want to talk about Evan, who really kind of took it on the chin after Game 4. I think to some extent, comes with the territory, man. You're a max player. You were second team All NBA last year, defensive player of the year. You can't have an 8-9 game. I don't think he was phenomenal in this game, but I do think he was good enough. He had 23 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks. Sorry, that was yawn caught me off guard. And the only thing I'll say is you have to judge it on the curve of he's probably not going to go 3 for 3 that often from 3. 9 of those 23 came from the 3-point line, but boy, were they all necessary. They really, really needed every little bit of those 3 second half threes. He took them confident. He stepped into them, and I really appreciated it. I also appreciated the finishing. Again, got back to just finding the ball, calling for it in close quarters, and just going up right away. And, there was one play, I think, near the very end of the game where Murray Boyles got him, but, he got up quickly at least. And that's all I can really ask. I don't need him to be, prime Giannis offensively. I need him to be involved and to be a target and to attack, the weaknesses that the guards create. And while there was a lot of big man discourse over between Game 4 and Game 5, and I get it, Big's box scores looked ugly. I do think just the way this team is constructed, the guards have to gain an advantage, and then the bigs need to take advantage of that advantage. I don't think the guards were consistently creating an advantage in Game 4. I think they did a better job in Game 5, and we saw the kind of the fruit that bears. So overall, I feel like Evan had a strong game. It is hilarious. He still is stuck at 13 field goal attempts. If you're a listener of this podcast, you know that I am that I am obsessed with him getting like 15, 16 field goal attempts in a game, and it just doesn't look like they're ever going to give it to me. But you know, I gotta, I guess I'll just, you know, I'll enjoy the cosmic irony of that box score. Last thing I want to look at in terms of like, you know, kind of the box score review, box score analysis. Actually, I have two more. I think Sam is giving really, really unbelievable minutes in this series. Even when the jumper isn't going, and it's been going the last couple games. He goes 2 of 2 from 3 in the game. Only gets the 3 attempts up, but the 2 threes were pretty crucial. One in the first quarter when everything was going to hell, and he hits a crazy step back over Colin Murray-Boyles. And then another one coming off a really nice action where he got open on the left corner. Also, he's just been getting to the line a little bit, like bumping and finding his ways to attacks. And just keeping the ball moving and just being a really rugged defender. I mean, he was plus 19 in this game. I want to say he led the team. I'll confirm that right now. Yes, he did. And I think his minutes have just been really, really strong. And I was worried that we'd have a little bit of a pumpkin experience. You know, undersized guard, postseason setting, shooting specialist. We see a lot of those guys get game planned out of playoff series, but I think all the soft stuff that Sam has been doing has generally been good enough to make it not so dependent on the shot going in at a high percentage or a high volume. Like if you were to say, hey, like going into the series, like, hey, Carter, Sam's only going to get up 2 threes in a game. He plays 23 minutes. I'd be like, all right, bro, that's not good. But again, I didn't feel that way about his minutes. I didn't feel like he's been getting taken out of the series, and I think he's one of the most consistent because Max is ever since game 1, Max has mostly been taken out of the series as a shooter. He is, yeah, it's just not been good. He goes 4 for 6 in game 1, 2 for 4 in game 2, 4 for 8 in game 3, so got to give him some credit there. Then 0 for 5 and 0 for 2. So he's 0 for his last 7. Hasn't made a 3 the last 2 games. He's 2 of 9 from the field in the last 2 games. So I think Sam is the only one who is actually on those movements, like causing that panic, and creating some of that chaotic energy. So I just wanted to shout out Sam. Max, I think, again, continues to play strong floor games. He's just got to make shots. And I know that's like the point of the sport. And like eventually the got to make shots thing is going to matter. But overall, I think he's still being helpful enough. Like this is another game where I'm like, role players gave you everything you need. Max scores 8. Dean scores 7. He did not have an efficient game, but I liked the aggressiveness with which he played generally. Only had a couple plays where he got over his skis, or I think he missed Jarrett or Evan like on what should have been a pretty easy big to big alley oop, but instead kind of threw it over his head, and then ended up getting blocked on the rim when he got the ball fed back to him. But like overall, I thought his aggressiveness was fine. He got 7 points. He was active on the baseline as a cutter, which I think is really helpful. Just to, again, sometimes the sport isn't about the actual results. It's about the energy you create. Giving up 2 dunks to Dean Wade makes the defense think a little bit. But Tyson, I thought was very good in this game. I actually thought he deserved more than 13 minutes, especially now that Ingram's not playing. I'm going to assume that he's going to miss the next game until proven otherwise, just because normally you don't leave a game unless you really can't come back, and if you really can't come back, you're pretty hurt. Because I think Ingram's the one like nightmare matchup for Jalen. If he can get some minutes on the RJ Barretts or the Jamal Sheds of the world, I feel really good about Jalen on the defensive end. And then offensively, I just think he's like, he initiated for them. I thought he looked really, really good. And like, I might look to get him closer to, 17 to 20 minutes in game 6, because it just helps so much when a load up defense has to be like, wait, this guy's running a pick and roll now? And it bore fruit for the most part. Like they were able to set inverted pick and rolls where James was screening for him or Donovan was screening for him. Overall, just really like the Jalen minutes, and I've been really proud of the way he's settled in to this series. So ultimately, I think the role players are doing enough. The shooting hasn't been great. The 2 games in Toronto, obviously the shooting was very bad. So was it in game 2. But obviously they shot much better today, which helps. Dennis scoring 19 points helps. I keep going back to this series does feel like it's about the stars for the Cavs. There have been series that I don't think that's the case, where I've looked at who was around the stars and went, hey, either we don't have the talent or we don't have the archetypes we need. I think this team has just about every archetype they need. They've got role players who don't seem to be afraid of the moment. I don't think Max plays afraid. I don't think Tyson's been playing afraid. Definitely don't think Sam or Dennis play afraid. So it really is about, hey, can the stars get us where we need them to get? And can they make the right decision consistently against this overwhelming pressure that this Raptors team is throwing at them? Because they're pulling out all the stops. I got to give them credit. I got to give a guy like Colin Murray-Boyles and Jamal Shedd and even R.J. Barrett, I thought, had a much better defensive game than he's had earlier in the series. And Jakob Poeltl, again, has really found his way defensively as well. And offensively. Man, he had a really good offensive game. Like, they're throwing big punches at us. Better punches I think the Cavs were expecting. Better punches than I was expecting. But the role players are generally doing their jobs, and it's on the stars. It's on the stars to play under control, to take care of the ball, to score efficiently and make the Raptors defense break. That is their job. Stars break defenses and make you stop doing what you want to do. I think about, that Pacers series last year and all the times that over the course of the season where I'm like, hey, Jared's switch metrics are really, really, really good. And the Cavs are comfortable switching Jared out onto guards, knowing that the back line can be protected and Jarrett can chop his feet well enough. And what did Tyrese Halliburton do? He scored on Jarrett over and over and over and over again and said, I don't care about your metrics. I don't care about what your average is or your standards are. I am going to make you stop doing this and do something that you don't want to do instead, schematically. And that's what I still am I feel like the Cavs threw that first punch the first couple games and made Toronto change their tactics. But ever since Toronto changed, it still feels like it's a little bit of an uphill. I feel like they're Sisyphus rolling the ball up the hill. Like they're getting it most of the way there, and then it rolls back again. And we even saw it at the end of this game where the offense really chunked up again, and Toronto was able to take an 8, 10, 11-point lead and drag it back within a couple possessions, and we're a couple open 3-pointers away from making this game a lot scarier. So I don't think this thing is solved. I think to some extent you have to credit the Raptors. I think to some extent you have to challenge the star players on this team. I'm looking at you, Donovan, James, and Evan specifically to be the spirit breakers that star players are supposed to be. And so I don't know. We're getting near the end of this one here, but I gotta say, I think this is going 7. Unless Scotty's hurt. I think that would be the counter. If Scotty is actually hurt and we're dealing with a worse situation than just maybe being a bit hampered, it just feels like the Raptors still are finding the things they need to find to stay competitive in the series. They're hitting their jump shots at a high enough frequency. They really are getting out in transition. They murdered the Cavs in transition in this game. They are still able to get turnovers and turn them into pick sixes. I mean, they at one point had they had 28 points off of 15 turnovers. And at one point it was like a lot more than, the ratio was even worse than that. Like they are still getting the game plan style wins in playing Toronto Raptors basketball. And until I see the Cavs break that spirit and make them play Cleveland Cavaliers basketball, and to some extent define what Cleveland Cavaliers basketball is, because we still kind of don't know, given the sample sizes we're operating with and the newness of the team that we're operating with. But until I see that stylistic switch flip and it starts feeling like the dam is going to just perpetually break on Toronto and not the inverse, I think this is going to go 7. I had originally picked Cavs in 6, but it just feels a little too shaky right now for that to be the case. And I think this might just come down to like the home team might just win every game. What that says about the Cavs, I think, depends on what you feel about this Raptors team. But I would feel a lot better about this Cavs team if they were able to take care of business and put away a team down 2 starters, 2 important starters, in Ingram and Quickly, and do their job. So, I guess we'll see. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Justin will be taking over on Friday with a guest host. That will be an audio only podcast. So just settle in and check out the other great folks that go live the night of. People like Mac Perry over at It's Cavalier for your immediate post game after Game 6. But thanks for rolling with me through a solo pod. These are always a challenge, but sometimes they're nice because you just kind of have to sit and work through your thoughts in real time about what matters, what doesn't matter, what's encouraging, what's discouraging. And, again, this was not a game that I'm going to, remember forever as one of my favorite Cavs memories, but a win is a win is a win in the postseason. And you can't turn up your nose at those, even if the process scares you a little bit on the road to that victory. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast. If you are following us on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe to the Cavs YouTube channel. Drop a like on the video, please. Please drop a comment in the post game. That really helps with algorithm and discoverability. If you're listening on any of your audio preferred platforms, go ahead and subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be a part of our Cavs exclusive Discord, please leave a review and send it to chasedownpod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Make sure you're staying safe out there. And as always, go Cavs.